Hello and welcome to another segment of Wine and Cheese on Passionate World Radio Station. CEO is Lillian Caldwell and Station Manager Jeannie White. Thank you both for having us on. This evening I have on Beckett Aguat. I hope I did that last name right. She's a registered nurse. Liz Dalton. Liz McTomney will be joining us. Joanne Farnham. And Holly Brown should be joining us, Executive Director of Look and Feel Fab. My name is Sheila Wilson. I'm a registered nurse, president of Stop Healthcare Violence. That was started in 2008 and became a nonprofit in 2018. For the past several segments, we have talked about the lack of personal protection for the healthcare workers and the damage that it has done to their skin and their morale. Tonight we're going to talk about the violence. So hello, ladies, and welcome. And if you could all say...
Hi, Sheila.
Hi. If you could all say a few words, introduce yourself, say a few words so that the listeners will get an idea of who's talking. Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Beckett, can we start with you?
I'm Beckett Aguat. I'm a nurse in Worcester, downtown Worcester, in the emergency department, and I've been a nurse for 14 years now. But I've been in emergency medicine since I was 16, so 28 years. I just gave my age away.
Oh, dear, how old? Joanne, you want to say hi?
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
You want to talk now, Sheila, all set?
No, whatever. Do you want to say a few words so that they'll get your voice?
Sure. My name is Joanne Farnham. I am an ER nurse. I was an ER nurse until I got injured back in 2015. And we worked in a very busy emergency room, and assault was actually more frequent than you would think. But I was treating a patient. I hadn't even gotten her to the back room yet, and she supposedly had a panic attack. But she threw me on the floor, spun around, was starting to take her skirt off, and then just, I had a lot of damage with my shoulder and different parts of the body. So since then, I have concerns and pray every day for my friends that are still working in the field because it's necessary.
Yeah, you're certainly right. Liz, you want to say a few words? Thank you, Joanne.
Hi, this is Liz Dalton. I've been a registered nurse for 24 years. I worked in Boston until I had a workplace violence assault with a patient's family member, yielding a knife, and I no longer work. I am out of work, and I'm trying to support other nurses through Stop Healthcare Violence that have been through these horrific assaults and try to protect healthcare workers, all healthcare workers that work in the hospital that are subjected to violence.
Thank you, Liz. Anybody else come on? No?
I don't think so.
Okay, so why don't we start with Beckett? Give us an update on what the heck is going on with your town, with the violence.
Well, as I was telling you, I work in Worcester, and even the police are reporting that we're up almost 700%, probably over that at this point, in gun violence from last year. As one of our local gangs went into Boston, messed with one of their gangs during the riots. That one came back to Worcester to take revenge. So we've had a significant increase in gunshot wounds being dropped off at the ER because my hospital is not a trauma center. And we actually even had one of our nurses murdered last month. And it wasn't related to the gang violence, but it does tally up in the Worcester gunshot violence that occurred. It was part of a murder-suicide, and it's just absolutely devastating and heartbreaking.
Was she one of your coworkers?
She actually, so we kind of work, a lot of our nurses work at both facilities, and she worked at both. So there wasn't many people who didn't know this very bright, energetic, and charismatic girl.
Wow. That's horrific.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
So what is the hospital doing? Are you protected?
We are not at ours, and we are downtown in between the two gangs that are fighting. And it's very unfortunate. I've fought for close to 10 years now to get metal detectors in there, and we still don't have them.
Wow. Even with the metal detectors, do you think that would be safe?
Well, at least you'd be pre-warned.
There's a lot of different security issues, and we've tried addressing them in the past, and we're actually in the middle of contract negotiations, and we're trying to address some of that now. But unfortunately, it's a profit company, and it affects their bottom line.
Yeah.
And they don't want to. They haven't wanted to hear it for years.
Well, what about OSHA? Have you tried them at all, or has anybody? Would they do anything?
We've tried all different avenues. I would like to say that I have some faith in OSHA, but even the fact that they do have stipulations on like how many bathrooms you're supposed to have and things like that, and we're actually losing a portion of our employee break room and one of the 2 bathrooms we have for one of the largest departments in the hospital to make COVID rooms right now. So I don't have much faith in OSHA as a standard. They have their standards, but it doesn't mean that they actually seem to have to adhere to them.
Right. It seems like OSHA is just a suggestion, you know?
Exactly.
There was talk a couple of years ago about them doing something, actually making it mandates, you know, but they never did it. They never, you know, these hospital lobbyists are so strong, and they fight on the fact of spending any money or bringing any kind of bad press to the hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as people think they're not safe, they're not going to come to that hospital. This is what they're afraid of. But patients need to be informed, you know, and they need to know what nurses and doctors and healthcare providers are going through, especially now in the pandemic. And it's happening in Boston too, where, I mean, I do know about some situations where the nurses are very afraid that are parking off-site, which you have to park off-site, and the situation with the drugs and the violence on the streets are in those parking sections, and they're afraid to go to their car. They're afraid to park there. People are shooting up everywhere. There's needles all over the place. I know that the mayor has tried to do what he can to give social services more. More homeless people have entered the city, you know, from the suburbs, believe it or not, to the city, you know. You know, like where Melina Cass and Mass Ave are, it's considered Methadone Alley. You know, it's a very scary place. And it's hard, you know, these things are happening right outside the hospitals, and that's just another thing that I found out the other day.
The hospitals are just an extension of what's going on in the city.
Right.
Honestly, it's anything that you see going on in the dark alleyways, you're going to have coming through the doors.
Absolutely.
So we're, you know, especially in the emergency department, so we're just an extension of whatever's going on. And you know, it's very easy for corporate to sit up in their offices away from all of it on the 6th floor or 5th floor and not be ground level with it.
Right, and usually it's a locked floor. They have
Yep.
security.
Yep, their offices locked and our hard doors.
Right. So, I mean, that's why people listening need to hear what's happening, because most people are trying to stay away from the hospital right now, but what you're having is a huge uptick in violent patients, the gangs, like what you're going through, the drug use, the ODs, the violent fights in the street. That's right. You said that's exactly what your emergency room is taking on. They have to have security.
The regular patients are coming back. Our regulars, but also, we've had strokes and MIs, and the numbers are increasing. We've been slammed. We've had up to 23 boarders one night, 16 the other, in the ER, and it's, they furloughed all these people. I'm sure that you've read about what Tenet did during the COVID crisis and the surge. They furloughed all these people, and then they haven't brought them all back, and they haven't approved hiring. So even though we're getting back to the normal and, or the new normal, as they say,
right.
And even though we're doing surgeries again and everything's back in full force, they haven't hired the staff back, or even, we just got our second secretary back. It's September.
Wow.
It wasn't like anything really slowed down for them because the call rate increased for them because people were calling about COVID. So it's, it's make do. They've increased nurses on the floor up to 6 patients, 5 patients. It's just not a good situation. And they're, even if they hired a slew of nurses right now, it still takes time to train them.
Right.
So
do you find that they're hiring more travel nurses?
I have not seen a single one so far.
Oh, okay. Because I know that's what's happening in Boston. They're using an extraordinary amount of travel nurses instead of hiring.
Which it seems counterproductive.
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just got on. I had trouble connecting. This is Liz McTomney, and I'm an RN.
Hi, Liz. Welcome.
I'm so sorry about that. But you were talking about travelers. I actually was a traveler for a short time. I went to Arizona, but they are supposed to be well-versed in their skills.
Yeah.
So that we got 2 days of training, and then I went right into the emergency room.
Right.
So
the few travelers we've had have been phenomenal, but we don't have any right now. They actually, the last one we had, they cut short during the COVID surge because our numbers decreased in the ER so much.
Yeah, Beckett, one thing I'm concerned about is you said that there was no safety, no security in your hospital now?
So we have our SPOs who have
What's that?
Are special police officers, so they've gone through the academy and they have arresting ability, but they carry nothing to protect themselves or us with, except for some pepper spray. And then there's a hired security group, G4S, and they're some of the individuals I'd be more apt to be able to pick them up and take them out of the crisis situation, or even handle it better than they've been trained. Because one thing I will say is that I've had CPI training and MOAB training both there, and I was actually, sadly enough, as a nurse, because of what we're dealing with MOAB, they taught us how to take a gun and a knife off of a person.
Wow. Well, why are they? They can walk in there with the gun in their pockets or a knife, right?
Well, the night that we found out about our coworker being murdered, we also had GSW dropped off that night. And as I said, I've brought it up, and I'll bring it up, and I'll keep bringing it up, is that there's no way of locking down. There's no metal detector, there's nothing. So this person could have come in and said, I have abdominal pain, holding their abdomen, and be carrying a weapon.
Exactly.
And a lot of the times that's the biggest concern is, like, you don't say that you have anybody with that injury, even to the family, which is horrific. Like, I hate saying that to them, but it's to keep everybody safe, because you don't know who's calling and who could be coming in to try to finish the job.
Right.
And finish what they started.
When I was working in the ER, we had a psych room, but of course we had a lot more psychs than we had rooms. And at first there was this order that you strip them down, put them in a Johnny, and then we put all their clothes and everything else in this, like, a cage or something, so that everything was safe. Then the orders came that you couldn't touch them. The only thing you could do, if you felt there was something, suspicious in their pocket, you could frisk them. But other than that, they were allowed to do, to keep their clothes on and everything else. And I don't know if that has changed. I don't know if anybody has talked to where we used to work. Actually, Liz McTomney worked there, and Joanne, if you remember all this.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty scary.
Sheila,
yeah.
Very often when they came in and they were somebody or someone that was suspicious, they came in with police, or they had already notified security, this is a combative patient or whatever. So you sort of had an idea that there could be a problem. It sounds like these nurses don't have any idea what's walking in. It's cold off the street. And
Right.
That's a high risk.
Very high risk.
And that doesn't
Hi, Sheila. Sorry, it's Holly. I'm late. Sorry.
Hi, Holly.
Okay. Hi, Holly.
Hi,
And Holly, can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Holly Brown, and I am the executive director, founder of Looking and Feeling Fab, a charity that does skincare for people with cancer. I'm also a board member on the Stop Healthcare Violence.
And the skin
Awesome.
products
Thank
they have are fantastic.
I'm sorry?
And
The products that you provided the nurses have been fantastic.
Oh, good.
They've really
That's
been
awesome.
I found little vials. They've left them on the desk so they can use them.
Oh, cool.
that's awesome. And maybe after this segment, after the recording has stopped, maybe we could talk a little bit longer so Holly can introduce something to you, Beckett, and Joanne was on it. So anyhow, let's get back to the violence.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is, as Sheila knows, this is a very personal subject for me. Has anybody brought any ideas to administration on how they can do a better job of just trying to, find out, is this person coming in, volatile and looking for John Doe, or is he coming in with some fake symptom so he can get his butt into the back of the, into the emergency?
That's been brought up multiple times to management. Multiple times. I mean, we had a woman who was in hockey and just fell out of her purse. I mean, it's like, don't get me wrong. I'm a gun carrying. I'm 2A. I know it's totally against a lot of what goes on, but I live in the country. We have coyotes. We have deer and turkeys. And
you're safer with them than you are with the people that walk in to that emergency room.
We hunt, and I train, and I'm a licensed carrier, and I've never shot anybody in my 10 years of having a gun. So we've brought it up to management, and it seems to be falling on deaf ears.
Well, is there any way, I don't know, this is so bothersome that nobody takes the time to realize that all of the nurses that work in that emergency room, as well as the hospital and the psych unit, they have a right to safety. And they seem to blow that up. And
right. So how do we change that?
Well, the only thing I can think of, and it's probably dumb, but get one of those numbnuts from the administration, get 2 or 3 of them to sit down in the emergency room for an 8-hour shift over the weekend and 3 or 4 times during the week, so they can get a flavor for what the hell is going on.
That would be nice.
They just don't seem. Where are the unions?
Oh, the union's been fighting it. I'm union. I'm actually the grievance chair at the facility I'm at, and we actually have grievance forms now. During COVID, we created 5 grievance forms, so it wasn't just unsafe staffing. It was multiple different, and the nurses could fill out these grievance forms, and in the first weekend, they got 38. During
wow.
The
let me ask you something, because I used to be a union steward, and quite frankly, I'm not impressed with the union. But what do they do with these 38 complaints? I mean, do they...
Oh, well, we'll be following up. It's not just 38. It's so much beyond that at this point that they have to sit down, but we also are still waiting to the point where we can actually get into a room with them. And we're in the middle of negotiations about this all, too, right now. It almost seems like the hospital has created a war on the nurses. And it's just, it's demoralizing. It's hard to focus on what you need to do, which is take care of the patients when you're concerned for their safety, your safety. You know, I've had to have conversations with my father and my son's dad and say, listen, if this happens, every single time something comes in, I write an incident report about it. Every single time I've been taking pictures of the weapons that are coming in. I've sent them all the way up the chain to the CEO, these pictures. And if anything happens to me, I want to make sure that my son's taken care of, because there's a real possibility as a nurse, me going into work, that I can get murdered.
I know.
That is so friggin' scary.
It's so shameful that we're going in as caregivers and risking. We're not in Timbuktu. We're not in Iran. We're not in Syria. We're in the United States trying to take care of patients without a lot of politicians involved. This sickens me. It really does. I'm so sorry that you're going through all this and it's turning on deaf ears. What about the doctors? Are they part of the solution or the problem?
Well, you know, it's funny. We actually have a it's kind of like outsourced for the ER. They're not hospital doctors, but even then, they don't have any protection. So they're fearful of speaking up or, you know, and losing their jobs. They don't, unfortunately, have the same protection that we do as the union. So it's a mess. It's honestly a mess. You know, at one point we filed a petition, and we had about 1,000 signatures of every walk in that hospital, from housekeeping to vendors that are in the hospital to MDs and everyone in between. And we still don't have a metal detector, and that was 3 years ago. You know, we had what happened to Elise Wilson at Harrington.
That's right.
And, you know, Harrington, which is a smaller hospital, got a metal detector within, you know, a month. And then following that, a month later, UMass had them. And We got a wand.
Whatever happened to that kid? He was just 22, wasn't he?
He was young. I'm not quite sure. I know I looked it up recently, but I'm not quite sure
that
where
had to
he's
be
at this point.
A terrible thing that triage nurse sat there, and he's in his own head thinking about hurting her because he wasn't. Now this is all through the newspapers. He wasn't treated the way that he wanted to 2 weeks ago, and he stabs her 11 times, and then her coworker
sharpened his knife.
Yes.
He sat there and sharpened the knife in the parking lot, and she coded multiple times. Her own coworkers had to work on her before they could get her over to UMass, and it was very. I can't even imagine, and just the fight in Elise to get out of that room and get down the hall. It wasn't like there was people right there with her.
Mm-hmm.
The world's changed, and unfortunately, the hospitals are not keeping up with what's going on in the world.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is.
I remember.
Sheila, do you remember when I was in triage? And I'm hoping this has changed. When I was in triage and the patient came in, and all I said to him, I didn't realize that he had been sitting in the waiting room for about an hour. I did not know that because I was covering a break. So all I said to him, what brings you here tonight? He went nuts. He didn't stab me, thank God, but he spit at me, and he backed me into a corner. But the kids that were working in the registration and the other couple of kids that were there with registration and housekeeping panicked because they thought he was going to attack me. As it turned out, he ran out the door. But they didn't know what the heck to do. So is the staff that works around you prepared to be able to jump in and help you or call for help if you need it? You know what I mean? Like if someone's in, I don't know what your facility looks like, but at Connie it was, I think they've changed it now, but it had triage, registration, and what was the other office there, Sheila? And they were all sort of within yelling distance.
Security.
They just didn't know what to do. When this kid started to escalate, and his voice started to escalate, and he got very loud, and very angry. Apparently he was angry because he had been waiting for quite a while, but I didn't know that. So it just sort of jumped. As soon as he walked in, he was on high. So I wasn't prepared to calm him down because I wasn't prepared for high speed. So when the other people, I yelled over to one of the kids, call the police, and she said, I can't. So my question is, hopefully your auxiliary staff is being trained or taught that they can do something, whether it's get help or, call for another security officer or whatever they need to do to try. They can't diffuse the situation, nor are they expected to, but they should be able to help their coworker. Yeah. But they were so afraid that they'd lose their job. It was really sad, And they all felt bad, but it didn't help me as I had spit dripping off my face. I was
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Can I make a suggestion, Sheila?
Sure.
Just this is to Beckett. Now, what happened with me? Okay, we were we were in, when I had this this assault at work, we were also in the contract negotiations. And one of the things that we were fighting for was for safety. I'm not sure if you're doing that right now, but we also were told by the M&A legal department that we had the right to speak publicly if whatever problems were in that negotiation. I don't know if safety is one of your negotiations, but I think it would be something to ask about. And another thing, because we went to the press, and it was all over the news. Okay, what had happened, because it was not soon after when Dr. Davidson was killed at the Brigham Women's Hospital.
Yeah.
So it was related to contract negotiations, so you could not be fired for going to the press because of the negotiations. But I think it's something you need to find out about. But the only way to get these CEOs off their duffs, okay, and pay attention is to be in the press, on the news. And another thing that I think it's been a couple of years since I've been working, but Boston Medical Center had a specially trained security team for gangs. I don't know if they still do. I'm sure they do. But
they do.
That, I think it would be good to find out through the union on that side of, because they have a strong union over there through the M&A at Boston Medical. Just find out if, this might be something that should be added into contract negotiations, or to find out what they're doing over there.
I bring up Boston Medical Center all the time because before I became a nurse 15 years ago, my brother was involved in a horrible accident. He fell from a rooftop, triple-decker, and ended up at Boston Medical, so I ended up visiting him a lot. And I remember going through metal detectors and having my bag searched, and there was no way going up into the hospital that you didn't go through a metal detector.
Yep, I think that, maybe this could be, I don't know what your contract negotiations are about right now, and if it does include safety, but if you find out.
Oh, it does.
You have the right to speak publicly without being fired. So I would check on it first, but they're not going to listen to anything, okay? They're not going to listen until they hear something bad about their hospital, okay, because their bottom line is the financial end of it, okay? That's it. And that's why there's no bills in the House related to any kind of safety for medical workers right now. There's nothing. I mean, I do know there's a brand new president that was just elected to M&A, although Donna Kelly Williams, I worked with her, and she was awesome to me. She helped me, but we have a changing of the guards now. I mean, I do know that Katie Murphy was always politically involved at the State House, but we have no press coverage for what's going on, And I think maybe even just calling the news stations and giving them an FYI,
We're very blessed that actually the vice president of the M&A is part of our negotiation board, and she's my mentor. She was the grievance chair at St. Bees. And she's on the negotiation committee. We do have a whole security proposal.
Good.
We'll probably be discussing it tomorrow because we have negotiations tomorrow.
Awesome. And then your grievances.
We're also very blessed that we have Sandy, who works with the politicians and is up on the Hill, and she's a former St. Bees nurse. So with the M&A, we've got a lot of support from the M&A, and I will say that is an absolute blessing on our part, is that we are union. We do have it, and we have Wendy, who's a strong union leader for us. So we've got a really solid team, and we actually had 21 nurse negotiation panel. We had almost every floor, every unit, and almost every shift. And actually, we do have every shift because I'm overnights. We've got a few of them who are overnights, 3 to 11 days. So we've got a really strong negotiation committee.
You're very, very lucky.
We are.
That is fabulous. Because you get more from, and that's such a great suggestion, you get more from when you have more people involved. Sheila, we didn't have all that.
No.
And it was very hard to negotiate. And I am from Boston Medical. I mean, I worked there for 18 years, so I was very safe there and was shocked when I went to Connie. Shocked. I'm like, well, where the hell is your security? You know, they just, I don't know, they must have been in La La Land. But CMC was really, really on top of their nurses. And I don't know whether it was Elizabeth Cadigan. I don't know who the person was that directed them. But we were safe, you know, for the most part. We were safe. I mean, there's always, you know, some razzle-dazzle, but I did very well with over there. It was, as Sheila could tell you, was amazed at the lackadaisical attitude.
Yeah, I have to agree with Liz because I also worked at Boston Medical Center, but just for a short period of time. But they have arresting officers, so if somebody acts up, they can just handcuff them and take them away.
Yeah. And the word gets out, you know, that you can't pull a lot of crap because you're not going to put up with it. So I wish you the best with your negotiations. I really do. The CEOs and whatever, they pretend they're deaf, but they're not.
No. We had a huge turnover of management during our CNO and ACNO at the end of COVID have gone. So when we started back in negotiations, it's a whole different management team right now. Like our first couple sessions were going over what the proposals were. So we lost our labor relations person at the hospital. We got a new, like a couple weeks into it, we got a new head of HR who's covering 2 campuses, so she's not even always at our hospital. And a lot of stuff went to Texas, to their headquarters. So like even getting hiring done, it's not done locally anymore. It's done through them. So it's a struggle right now.
Yeah. I feel for you. I really do. Really, really do. And I have been out for a couple of years, so I really feel, and I know it's worse now than when Sheila and I did it. And it was a hellhole then.
And
it sounds like you're sort of heading in the right direction. You know, you've got involvement, which is awesome. It's so powerful to be able to have, you know, a select amount of nurses that are vocal, that can get the message out. And the press is a fabulous idea. That was one of the things with BMC. They didn't want negative press. You know, so they sort of went above and beyond to try and shut you up. But it was worth it. You know, it really was. And I hope that you guys finally can succeed.
Now, Beckett, excuse me, Beckett, does your hospital provide somebody walking you to your cars?
If we call them, but half the time they're short-staffed. Actually, one of the blessings is that the security team has been short-staffed because we've actually had Worcester PD details in our waiting room because we always have at least one security sitting at the waiting room at the front desk usually. And they've been replacing that with the Worcester PD detail because we're down security staff. SPOs are special police officers, where I think there's like 5 positions that are open right now. They just lost the head of their department. So as I said, it is absolutely, it's going to be a struggle, but I'm very blessed with the team that we have, and we're very strong together. And I'm working with some of the most intelligent nurses I've ever met in my life on this negotiation team, who are very skilled at verbalizing their concerns and articulating the issues and following through and getting the rest of the nurses on board. It's an interesting situation, but at the same time, I couldn't be more blessed with the women and the men that I'm surrounded by for our nursing in our union.
I'm glad for you. I really am.
I'm thrilled for you. Because
yeah, me too.
So much easier if everyone is on the same page with your nursing and if they're kept up to date with everything going on, because they want to be involved. Many times they just can't, for kids or whatever.
The sad thing is I understand the risk at this point. But the patients who are coming in don't.
Right.
And that's the big thing, that if we're not safe, if the staff aren't safe, neither are the patients that are there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
that's the biggest problem.
That's terrifying to me. That's absolutely terrifying to me. We don't go into nursing for the glory or for the paycheck, because that's just not why you do it. You do it because you care, and especially as an ER nurse, I get to help people in the worst situation.
Yeah,
I get to, this is the worst moment of their lives, and I'm the one that they're looking at because I've gotten the training. I've been blessed to be able to do this. And it is a blessing. There are shifts, you have those shifts where you walk out and you're just downtrodden and you feel like you've been beaten the whole shift, and then you have that one patient who just wants to give you a hug or says thank you, and you know that you changed their lives that moment, or you helped them have a better moment in the worst moment. And it's those moments that you hold on to as a nurse, and you keep going back. If it was for the paycheck, I would go down the street. The hospital down the street has better pay, better benefits, better everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's not why I do it. I love the hospital I'm at. I love the staff, the nurses that I work with. I think it's a great hospital. I just don't think it's being run correctly from the top up.
Yeah.
And I think that I try to not be a pessimist. I think I tend to be more of an optimist. And I think that I can make a change. And I think that we as a nursing union can make a change, and we as nurses can make a change. And I look at what the nurses have done before us, that, it used to be okay for a doctor to scream at you and throw a tray at you. And now that would not be tolerated. But that was because the nurses before me said, this is not acceptable. We will not accept it. We're a profession. You need to treat us as professionals. And I think that each nurse needs to make it not just their goal to take care of the patient, which should be our primary goal, but also to leave the nursing field better for the younger nurses following behind us.
Yeah.
You are right. So on target. I'm really impressed. It's a wonderful way to look at nursing, even though everybody's sinking around you. That you can still hold on to that glimmer of hope that we went in because we want to take care of people. We want things better for them, for ourselves. I was shopping one night at the South Shore Plaza, and this woman came up to me who I did not remember and was crying because she had breast cancer, and when I took care of her, and we bonded through her multiple visits to the emergency room. And it just made me feel so good that someone would even remember me. That I gave decent care, that they could come up and share that with me. I really, it means a lot. And unless you're a nurse, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do have those moments. I remember post-shift in my scrubs, just trying to grab, the few essentials at Walmart on my way home, and feeling somebody was watching me, and then realized this couple was kind of stalking me through the aisles. And I started to get a little nervous. And the woman finally said, do you work at St. B's? And I said, yep. And she had miscarried, and I had walked them through it. And unfortunately, I had been through a similar situation prior to having my son, and I talked to them about it. And I said, there's still hope. That, just because it's happened once, it doesn't mean it'll happen again. I have a child at home. After having a miscarriage, I had my rainbow baby, and she was stalking me to tell me that she was pregnant again. Gave me a huge hug, and she's like, I'm pregnant again, and I thought it was you. So, you have those random moments, even outside of work, that it gives you that
connection.
And it gives you that drive to keep on doing, to keep on being, and to keep on taking care of people, and not just healing them physically, but also trying to help with the emotional and the mental portion of it.
Right. And
I miss my patients.
I miss the emergency room. I really do.
I don't know. I've said this over and over. I don't know what I'll do as a nurse when I get too old to actually work the ER, when I'm too sore and my body just doesn't want to do it anymore. And I can see that starting to happen, those knee pains, that shoulder ache, that, you pull up the patient and then that shoulder hurts the rest of the shift and you're eating ibuprofen. And
5 years ago, I would have said just grab triage of the GI clinic. Because
I think occupational health now.
Yeah.
But I just don't think I'll find that as fulfilling as I do being emergency room.
Yeah.
And the amount of knowledge I need to know, but not only that, but just the amount of people's lives I can touch in all different ways. Because emergency, you do everything. You do everything from A to Z. You can be catching that baby in triage, to having that hospice patient that was sent in because the family got nervous and didn't want to do it at home.
Yeah.
So, and we do everything in between: the violence, the stub toes, the little one who fell down and hit the head, and it's the mom's first child, and they're not sure, and they come in, and the baby's fine, but you're wiping off the mascara for mom. It's just those moments.
That's so true.
Going, you know what? I've been there. Yep, I remember being the first time Mom and Nash hitting his head, and it's those moments with these people that I don't think that you get anywhere else but in the nursing field. You don't have the ability to intimately touch somebody's lives and hearts and affect them. And I think as a nursing community, we need to remember that this is why we're the most respected, most trusted occupation year after year after year. And unfortunately, we're also the most assaulted profession year after year after year. And I don't think the public realizes that. And I think the public's become more aware of what nursing and first responders and healthcare providers do during this COVID, and I think there's a greater appreciation right now. But we have short memories. Yeah. So as nurses, we have to have that long-term memory of why we're doing this, why we do it day in, day out, and not just during the moments where it's appreciated, but even during the moments where we're getting called every name under the book and spit at. So
You're right.
We've all been called terrible names.
Oh, yeah. Some of them have
and the violence is continuing. It's just getting worse and worse. And
it's escalating. I mean, there was a point where they would call you nurse, and it was said with respect, and now there's just the respect of our.
Before it.
Yeah. Now there's just, I think overall in the general population, just a disconnect with the value of life, respect for each other, respect for your neighbor. Yeah. It's just been lost.
I mean,
any solutions to this, do you think? Okay, can we do something as nurses to help?
I think she's doing it, Sheila, with the more nurses that are involved. I think that was a great, suggestion thrown out that if you hit people, if you hit the CEOs and the DONs and all of those people in their pocket where they're going to get publicity that may not be as promising as they would like. I do think it'll change a little bit, but I think if you don't keep pressing, you're not going to get it. Because you're right, we have short memories, and nurses will just say, oh, this is part of the job. And it's not part of the job. You know, nobody works at Macy's to get the crap kicked out of them.
Nope.
Right.
Even if they get
whoever invented.
I know.
Whoever said it's part of the job. How did we get brainwashed to think it's part of the job?
You know, I really don't know, Sheila. I think that because
it's the victim mentality.
I think because they sat back and they were so intimidated by doctors or, you know, CEOs or whoever, that it was, I think part of it was when the union stepped in and said, no more. This isn't going to happen.
Yeah. But other hospitals don't have that, and
exactly.
And nurses are silenced. They're told you can't press charges against patients. You can't do this. You can't call the police. You can't, and it's shuffled under the rug because God forbid they, you know, it gets brought forward and the hospital gets cast in a bad light, and you know, they're never going to say, oh, that poor nurse. They're going to say, well, you know, the hospital will turn it towards the patient. And that has happened for years. You've had management silence nurses for years and made it a shameful thing. They've made us victims. And it's getting to the point now where, and we had a tech who had gotten punched straight in the face by a patient, went to court, ended up before the judge. The judge asked where he worked. He named the hospital. He goes, no, what department? And he says, the emergency room. Well, don't you expect that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Exactly.
But that was the judge. So it's, you know, I've done speaking engagements on this, and I truly believe it's a 5-stage system that has to be addressed. First of all, we as individual nurses have to stand up and say, this is enough. We're not accepting this. Somebody can't treat me like this at home. They're absolutely not going to treat me like this at the job.
Right.
Second is that we have to get the police and their security at the hospital on board. And unfortunately, a lot of the times they're not union. They feel the pressures from their management. But if we don't get them saying, yep, we're going to arrest this person, yep, we witnessed it, or we're going to file, you know, charges and we will show up to court with you, that won't change. We've got to get legislative change. We've got to get laws on the board that protect us. And that say, this is going to happen, you are going to go to jail if you assault a healthcare provider. We have to get the judicial system on board that they treat us equally. Because you know what? If that person had straight punched a clerk at Walmart in front of everybody versus straight punching a nurse in the emergency room or a paramedic in the back of an ambulance, the outcomes have been different.
Right.
Very biased. It's very biased. Well, you know, that person has psychiatric, alcohol, drug issues. Well, that same person would probably have the same things at Walmart, but it's not going to be considered acceptable to hit the Walmart clerk.
Right.
So why is it acceptable to hit us?
Right.
You know, you're not going to make that same excuse for the drunk driver who takes out the family. They made a decision. They made a decision to use. They made a decision to do this. That's not on us, and we shouldn't be punished for it. And then the last portion, and that's going to be the last portion, because the hospitals, until they are forced by the legislative, by us, the nurses and the unions, aren't going to make changes. And that's going to be the 5th step, is that we get the hospitals on board and the corporations saying, yeah, you know what, 100%. I wouldn't want my mother, brother, sister, whoever's a nurse or healthcare provider and their family assaulted or murdered on the job because we weren't willing to implement safety.
Well, you're on the right track. Now let's get that engine to the station, because you definitely are on the right track.
We're trying. We're chugging along. We're the little train that they can.
I am very, very impressed. You're going in the right direction. We just got to figure out how we can do it.
This is obviously a very passionate area of mine. They joking around call me the security professional in our negotiation committee.
Beckett, you've got a lot of passionate people on this call because we've all been hurt and nothing has ever really been done about it. But our time is running out, and does anybody have any last-minute discussions, Joanne?
No, I think everyone's covered a good amount today. Thank you very much, all.
And Liz McTomney, any last comments?
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. These guys got it on the track. I'm happy.
All right. Liz Dalton?
I'm just, I'm thankful for Beckett. I'm thankful for nurses that speak out. It really, even with what happened with me, when I hear nurses talk and other healthcare providers talk openly about the situations that are going on and wanting to protect their patients and their coworkers, it really gives me hope, because a long time I had lost hope, as a nurse and what happened to me. But when I hear you talk, Beckett, it gives me hope. It really does. So I thank you for that, and all you nurses, and all you nurses that are heroes that worked for many, many years in hospitals and had to, saw the changes in nursing. I commend you all too.
That's awesome.
Well,
Holly,
that's
do you have any comments? You've been quiet.
No, I admire all of you.
Sheila, she's
don't
waiting to get on the train.
I don't think I could do that job. I just admire all of you. And I have a new target. I'm going after Beckett for when she retires. She needs to become an esthetician and work with us.
That'd be awesome. Good idea.
That would be
Okay.
great.
As I asked, maybe you guys you can stay on for a few minutes after the recording. So I'm going to sign out. Thank you all for coming on. Again, I thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO, and Jeannie White, Station Manager. Please get in touch with me and share this talk. My email address is sheilaw6@comcast.net. Again, please share this Wine and Cheese segment, and if you want to hear it again, it will be up on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and many others. Thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for your work.
Okay. Jeannie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
No? Polly?